Michigan. This is Grand Tap Media, Breathe In the Grand Show. My name is Pamela Kime, your host from Grand Tap Media. Thank you so much for being here. Boy, do I have some special neighbors for you to meet, guests that are on my show today. For all you parents out there that might have sent your children off to college, or maybe it's their first year or even their second year, these are some special ladies that you want to hear on what you can expect from your child as he goes through his first year, especially if he's away from college. And they're going to hear talking about what we can do as parents to help them succeed in their first endeavor into the college year. So I want to welcome two ladies from Grand Valley Student Housing Center. I want to welcome Kristen Evans and Brandie Tenney.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here, ladies. I have looked forward to having you here because I am a mother that have had 3 children go through the college years. But what I've kind of watched over with my friends or whatever is that first year when they go off to college. Now, I want to say that I think that the millennials, the Gen Z, as they call them, generation now, it's been kind of the cafeteria generation. Everything's been taken care of them, and that's not their fault. But we've had a society where we, as parents, wanted to have everything kind of easy for them to prepare for their college years in their adult lives. And we realize how precious time is when they're young, that they're going to have so much more responsibility as they grow up, that they're not going to have the freedom to do some of the things that we wish we would have had when we started at a young age of becoming parents. I became a parent at 21, and I didn't finish my college years and went back to college until my 30s. So I didn't want that for my children. I didn't go off to college, to a university. I stayed local. So I just wanted my kids to have that, what they might see on TV, that fun, building relationships that turn out to be lifelong, and doing that. So I want to thank you for being here, but I want you to kind of share what you do and how parents should be interested in connecting with you when their children do finally decide to go on to Grand Valley or another university. So thank you so much for being here. So I'm going to start with you, Kristen.
Sure. So again, Kristen Evans, and this is my 10th year with Grand Valley Housing. Prior to Grand Valley, I also worked in housing at Western Michigan University, the University of Delaware, and Baker College in Owasso. So university housing at Grand Valley and in lots of places is situated within student services. So we work very closely with our counseling center, with career services, and other resources that are available to students, both students who live on campus and students in general.
Well, thank you. And now, share what you do.
Yes, and thank you for having us. My name is Brandie Tenney, and I also work in Housing and Residence Life at Grand Valley. I am the assistant director in charge of the freshman area of campus. So really this idea hits home for me a lot. I see these students every day in their transition coming to college. Kristen and I got a same start. I also worked in housing at Western Michigan University, and then also at North Carolina State, and then Mizzou before I came to Grand Valley 14 years ago.
Now, when you talk about Grand Valley is such a huge college now, and I remember, you know, I've been around for a while, but I remember I've just seen it evolve, and it's got such a great reputation. But I did notice that people were coming in from the east side into Grand Valley, and they actually do love West Michigan.
Yes.
They will tell me that. Yes. But maybe not every student that's coming in from like out of state, or maybe even foreign. You're probably experiencing more foreign students coming in. And I want to share with what I kind of see with kids. They start getting into getting away from their parents, like I mentioned, and everything's been scheduled, and now they're in charge of their life. Now, as a mother, I was going through it. They have their classes set up. We come down to the campus. William said, "You guys do us the whole tour." What can you tell parents? Well, how can they get through this process where they're coming in and you're dropping them off, literally.
Yes.
And here's your life, and you've got your classes, but Grand Valley is not gonna take care of you like we have, watching it, and even the other supportive parents when you hung around with their friends. So tell parents how this process is gonna work and what would be best for them that maybe they're hearing the phone call, like how much they miss their parents, and this is so hard, I don't know if I'm well prepared. You know, nobody's helping me, kind of feeling. So I want to start with which one, Chris? Kristen or
Oh,
Brandie?
sure.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. No matter where the student is coming from, they're going to deal with some amount of homesickness. Just because you're right, it isn't home anymore. You know, they're living maybe in a traditional residence hall. It's not like at home where the kitchen is right downstairs or they have a bathroom right next door. It's going to be a little bit different, and so there's a transition coming in there. One of the things that we talk about a lot is they're going for a lot of our students that have involvement after school. They get up, they go to school, they do their involvement after school, maybe a team or theater, maybe they have a job, and so they have a pretty rigorous schedule in high school that they are on all the time. Once they come to Grand Valley, they only have 15 hours a week that they need to show up for class someplace, 15 to 18 hours. What do they do with the rest of that time? And some of them come in and they're going to play video games for 20 hours, or they're going to, they're going to hang out with friends, or they're going to watch Netflix. Others start to find their schedule and they realize they need to add some sort of athletics or some sort of a workout or an intramural team because they need that interaction. Many of them are going to figure out, I need to spend 2 or 3 hours a week per class making sure that I'm doing my homework and I'm studying. But as you said, them figuring out that schedule is really tough when it's been so rigorous and so planned for them up to the point that they get dropped off to campus.
Well, exactly. My son who went to Michigan State, I remember his first semester, and I remember he was, a good student. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you probably see some of these kids, they have been the top of their class. To get into Grand Valley, mm-hmm. you have to have a pretty good, academic score to get in. And all of a sudden, what do you do with a kid that was one of the most popular mm-hmm. kids? And mm-hmm. they were, you know what I'm saying? Everybody thought that they were going to be so successful. They get into Grand Valley, and all of a sudden, everyone yes. looks like them. Right. Everyone. My son said that was the biggest shock, mm-hmm. that everyone had done 10 times more that he thought he was doing a lot at high school level. Get to Grand Valley, and it's like, I've been doing this, and I'm doing this. Right. It's emotional adjustment, don't you think?
Definitely.
These kids come in and start dealing they're dealing with the whole classroom.
Yes.
Could pretty much be the top of their class.
Yes.
So how do you help? Do you have a system where these kids can, you're no longer the special kid anymore, the special student, right?
Right. And that is an absolutely relevant common experience for students to have, and some of them transition better from high school to college, and I think some of that has to do with what skills they gained in high school. So it's more than just the GPA or what's on their high school transcript. High school is very different, and like Brandie mentioned, some of it is the time. So a lot of it is on them. They're not going from 7:30 or 8 in the morning till 3 o'clock in the afternoon. 2 days a week, they may go 3 hours straight. 3 days a week, they're going 2 hours. They have a 4-hour break. They go another 3 hours. So one is the time and the self-discipline necessary to do schoolwork when you're not sitting in a desk. And so that is a transition. So I will say 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday, and that was part of their high school experience. It's a little bit easier for them, I think, than those who got the 4.0 in high school, but they did it relatively easily. So those that actually had a little high school struggle may actually fare better in the college environment because they have that grit, they have that resilience, and they have the self-discipline to do the studying out of class that's necessary to be successful.
So when you're dealing with student services like that, what are you seeing most common in the first 2 to 3 months into going into, for parents that might see that this is not, when they're picking up the phone, this is normal, mm-hmm. right? This is yes. But what are you seeing as they're walking in your door saying, I need help with mm-hmm. what?
Absolutely. And we liken this a lot of times to what we call the rhythm of the year. So in the beginning, parents might not hear from them a lot, or they are getting texts about, I'm going with this person here, and I'm having this over here, and I went and saw this, and they're just so excited because things are going great, and they love their roommate, and they're doing all of this. And then what happens is they kind of get into the more rigorous time of academics. They're starting to miss home, maybe a best friend, boyfriend, cousin from, wherever their hometown is, and they don't have that connection anymore. And so they start having a little bit of anxiety. They're feeling like maybe they're the only one that feels that homesickness. Maybe they're the only one that didn't do so well on that English paper. And so they start to have some self-doubt. And so parents might get a call that says, I don't know. I don't know if this is for me. You know, this is a lot tougher. Maybe I was the top of my class, or I was always connected with football from the time I was in 6th grade, and I'm not on the football team anymore. So who am I without some of those things I'm used to? And what I tell parents frequently is the same thing that helped to get your student in the door is the same thing that will help them through that time. It's the support. It's saying, how can we be helpful? Do you need us to come and take you out to dinner? Do you want us to send you a new picture of the dog? You know, do you need to maybe, you know, have a box of cookies sent to you? What is the support that you need? Let's talk through what your plan is, and then go from there.
That out, you know.
And so I think for the next point, I think some parents want to say, you know what, it's okay, come back home. Just come back home and stay with us and you can be okay. I know sometimes I'd be that kind of parent too, because I love my kids and I want them to not have to have a challenge, but that's what will make them a better adult, is to live through that challenge and to figure out how to talk to a roommate about something that's not going well, and to talk with your professor about what went wrong on that English paper and how can I improve in the future. It's that support from parents kind of re-talking about that will help.
Now, what about like the students that are, you know, that are coming in and they had, like you said, you're dealing with the parents, but you probably are getting the mom that was been what they call her, the helicopter mom, and parents, and all of a sudden now they're in your office, and my kid is doing this. My kid, I mean, are you getting any of that in the student centers?
Well, Brandie and I spend all summer working with parents through our parent orientation program at Grand Valley, and the most connected generation of parents we've ever had. And so, and it's not by accident. I mean, the No Child Left Behind Act, increased parental involvement in the classroom, was part of that, and that's more than 30 years old. What's different is the technology. So we recognize that depending on the school district, parents that are parents of high school students, they may have an app on their phone. They know the grade that their student has, if there's any missing assignments. They may even know like what that kid ate for lunch in the cafeteria. It's all instant access. And so there is a distinct shift in role there, and that can be difficult. I think that we talk a lot about student identities and them going from an adolescent to an adult throughout the college and beyond process. But there's some identity shift for parents as well. And so what we really frame our conversations with parents about is that you don't stop being a parent just because you have your student go away to school or you don't have access to their grades. You're not driving them to football practice anymore, but the role shifts. The title doesn't go away. You're still mom, you're still dad, you're still grandma, but what that looks like on a daily basis shifts. And we like to frame it is that you're going more from a day-to-day manager. And I think that a lot of parents right now today feel like between carpool and registering for sports and volunteering and everything, you are in a day-to-day management role, and you shift to more of an advisor and coach. And so there's a shift of role there. But we recognize that the home changes, siblings are affected by the leaving of a sibling to go away to school. They're also affected when that sibling comes back for the summer, and they may have to share a vehicle or a room that they've had to themselves. But the other thing that I like to talk with parents about is all of us, whatever skills we have and the things that we're good at, we got because of practice, and we probably weren't great at them on the first try. And so we want students to leave in 4 years, not only with a degree and with a great job lead, but we want them to have a whole host of skills that they didn't have walking in. And so we do a lot of our work, a theory that guides our work, not just at Grand Valley, but in higher ed in general, is a theory of challenge and support. And what this theory says is that in order to be successful, you need an appropriate balance of both challenge and support. Too much challenge, not a good situation. Too much support, not a good situation either. You need that balance. And so Brandie and I both have children as well, and some of our children are younger. And for us, I always make the analogy of when they fall down on the playground. Every time I have to decide as a parent, what kind of fall is this? Is this one that requires a hug and a Band-Aid and a popsicle? Or is this one where I say, no, wipe yourself off and go back down the slide? And so that concept remains true through parenthood. And so for some students, the struggle may be social, that they don't feel as popular, as connected as they did in high school. It could be academic. It could be some depression or anxiety, or it could be saying, I don't really know what major I want, and is it even worth it for me to be here if I don't know what I want to do? It could be that they turn all of their laundry pink because they, threw a red sock in there. So whatever it is, there will be something that a student is going to go back home, and that parent or trusted adult we encourage them to think about that concept of challenge and support. And so how do I support them? What level of support do they need? But at what times we really have to say, that is a hard thing to be going through. And I'm sorry you're going through that. And I hope that you find the resource on campus to help you, and you kind of nudge them to self-advocate. And so that's the important piece, because ultimately they're the ones that are going to be interviewing for their jobs and applying for their mortgages and buying their own vehicles and finding their own physicians. And so the sooner they do those things for themselves, the better they'll be at it when the time comes.
So you're not necessarily, if somebody comes to you and you're possibly, thinking that they're overwhelmed, anxiety, you're not necessarily plugging them into something. You're just telling you these are some of the organizations that might help you, or resources that we have. So they're choosing, but you're just not making a call and saying, hey, here, Julie, here you go. Why don't you go down the hall and talk to? I
think it's somewhere in the middle. So what is special about Grand Valley, although we're large in numbers, we have a very small feel. So Brandie and I know the people that we would be calling. So we do referrals all the time, but there's not a mandated referral. So if a student wants our help, by all means, we'll say, we'll call Mike over in academic services, we'll call Eric over in counseling, let's give Kate a call at Padnos International Center, and we'll make that call and connect that student. But whether or not they say yes to that invitation is on them. So we're not walking them over and mandating that they sit down with an advisor, but we're saying, you know what? You really should talk to financial aid about this, because if you drop this class, it's going to have a financial impact. But whether or not that student does indeed speak to financial aid, the onus is on the student.
Let's talk about financial aid. As a parent that, many years ago, I was learning how the electronic pen, how much they can agree on that I wasn't aware of that they were taking. But the impact of those decisions later down the road, I just saw somebody over the weekend, and he has $100,000 in credit. I had $100,000 in his student loans. So he said he's working 2 jobs because his payment is $1,200 a month, and he's young. And you want to understand, with Grand Valley, if these kids graduate at 25 or 24, whatever, they're ready for that next season of life. You know what I mean? And then to sit there with some amount of debt as what do you guys have possibly in place to say, look, you're going to drop these classes, but you have to start making serious decisions because they're going to impact you financially later down the road. Do you want to take this class? Is it something that's going to be beneficial to your degree? Do you really want to switch your degree so quickly? You've been 2 years. Do you know what I mean? Some of these kids, I noticed that they just like, they'll just go back and get a different degree. And I don't know if you're seeing that also, and this debt is just accumulating, right?
Oh, absolutely. And I think one of the things you said is, you can take out a lot of money, right? You can take out a loan, and you can decide, I'm going to pay for classes, and I'm going to go to Cancun for spring break. I'm going to maybe decide I'm going to live at the highest level I can possibly live. I'm going to have my own apartment with my own bedroom and my, in washer and dryer. That's absolutely a possibility. But like you said, you're going to be paying for that in the long run. And one of the things I think is great that our financial aid has as part of it is Money Smart Lakers. So talking about, if you take out this much money, how long are you going to be paying on that? And what does that look like over time? Do you really need that much? If you work this many hours at this type of job, how can you offset some of that cost? Can you use work study money and work on campus as part of your financial aid? That way you're working. We love to see students working on campus because it gets them connected with more people on campus. They have responsibility. They're learning some additional skills beyond what they're doing academically, but it's also offsetting some of that money that they're going to need to pay down the road. And so making those choices beginning their first year. Are they taking the most credits they can at the block scheduling? Because at a certain amount, you can take extra credits and there's no additional fee for that. And so finding that out at your institution, what is that block scheduling and how might I be able to do that? Are you going to be taking some courses perhaps at home over the summer at a community college and transferring some of those credits? How are you able to do some of that in between so that you're not just saying, yeah, Cancun sounds great. Well, I think Cancun sounds great to all of us. We love that. But paying for it for 20 years might not be the best idea. And so making smart choices earlier helps in that long run. Much like any of us, if we decide that I want to go out and buy the most expensive car, well, I'm also going to have to pay for that too.
I know, you probably get that student. Well, my daughter would always say to me, funny, she would say to me things like, well, Mom, I only get to be in college for so long,
Right.
be around these people. I'm supposed to have that. And so she did enjoy.
Yes.
And she is paid for
absolutely. And there's a certain amount of that goes on. Absolutely. Should you go to Cancun once or twice? Absolutely, if you can afford it. But is it something that you need to go every holiday someplace? Is it something that maybe instead you decide you're going to study abroad and do it as part of your college curriculum, and you're going to take a semester and you're going to go to France and study French or maybe art history, and you're going to use that as part of your credits? That would be a much better way to spend that money perhaps than on a 1-week vacation.
Yeah, that's what I try. And all of us parents want our kids to have the experience of college. And I think they see what's on TV and they're
Yes.
supposed to have,
Yes.
and how they're going to balance that socialization. And I know it's very important. It's coming out with
Yes.
evidence how important we are social.
Yeah.
I mean, with what's available without parents being around,
Yes.
the alcohol, and they've made some choices
Sure.
at a university to drink too much. And a student comes to you and they're like, they totally need to revamp what they're doing because they're just going down the wrong path.
Very closely. So at our institution, our alcohol education program is situated within the counseling center, and we have very close relationships with those staff as well. And so we are in a situation where we want to have really transparent conversations with students, and we want them to be comfortable sharing with us what their experiences are, what preconceived notions they have, and what that alcohol education looks like for students is often providing them some aha moments. And so what's neat about that program is that should students find themselves in a situation where they violate our alcohol policy and they're participating in this alcohol workshop, it's in the high 90s. I want to say it's 97 and 98% of individuals that go through it rated as saying, this was worth my time, I learned something new. And so so that's nice. One of the activities that they do is they talk about the red Solo cup that you always see. There's even songs written about it, right? And what is a drink? So you talk to a student and they say like, well, I had 3 drinks. Okay, well, pour some water into this red cup and show me how you made those drinks. Well, if you put this much alcohol in there, in each cup that you drank, there were actually 3 drinks in that. So you didn't have 3 drinks, you had 9 drinks. And so I think that students sometimes have some aha moments of, oh, okay, I didn't realize that. And so we're certainly having that conversation very closely with our alcohol education folks, as well as our police department too. And so making sure that students are making safe choices in that respect, and in all respects. The other thing that I think we have conversations with students about related to substance use is what's at the heart of that too. And so are we talking with a student who is drinking socially, or are we talking with a student who is using alcohol or another substance to mask something else that's happening in their life? And then what resources do they need to be plugged into to help that root cause?
Okay, that's good. I'm glad to hear that, because that's usually kids that have been, I guess, parents have been very disciplined, and all of a sudden now their bodies aren't really capable of taking in even some of that alcohol. You probably, the worst scenarios, they end up in the hospital.
Yes.
I mean, what do parents do? Like their child gets injured or they're sick the first time they come down with a cold, and I know what my kids, calling you up on the phone, I don't know what to take. Everything's been taken care of for them. What do you guys do for that?
You know what, that's funny. It's one of the topics we actually talk about during parent orientation, because I say, have this conversation while they're well. Because when they call and all of a sudden they've got the NyQuil bottle, they're like, I don't know, I'm sick and my throat hurts and what's happening? By that time, they're so worried about what do I need to do. So we start talking about what medication do they regularly take? How much do they take of it? How do they use their insurance card? What is a copay, and how do I copay? If they don't have a check to write or they don't have money, how are they doing that? I think we're lucky on Grand Valley's campus. We have a health center that's run by Metro Health, which is great, and they can stop in there if they needed to get a TB test because they were going to volunteer with children, or they had a twisted ankle and needed to have that looked at. They could absolutely do that. But one of the things we talk about with parents is what happens in an emergency, and do they know who they need to call? Do they know how to use some of these things? We do have wonderful medical systems in the area that they would be transported to, but ultimately, how are they going to get back? You know, are they going to call a friend? And how is that going to work? And what are they going to do if they need to talk with someone there about who's their home doctor and how do they get some records sent? And so that's one of those things where we're beginning to advocate for those students to take responsibility of knowing their medical history, knowing how to advocate for themselves in those situations. Because is that the more students are prepared and understand what they need to do, the better it is.
2 of my children are allergic to penicillin. So you know you
Very
have to
valuable
tell
to know. Yes,
people
yes,
that, right? Because
definitely.
you don't want to take medication even from your roommate.
Exactly.
Oh, I take this all the
Exactly.
time for my strep throat.
Right.
Right.
Don't take that. And you know, is that something where you want to send a little box? You know, at our house we take these medicines. This is how we know what reacts. This is what you take when you have a cold. This is what you do. And they just get that little medicine box out and they know what to take, or they have their Band-Aid or whatever they need. That way they feel a little bit more prepared, a little bit more secure.
Finishes up by, let's talk about the holidays.
Yes.
All right. This is huge, and not everybody celebrates, but Thanksgiving would be the next one coming up, right? Let's talk about how students are going to go home. It's going to feel different.
Yes.
You guys, you're preparing them, right? But what that's going to feel like, they can't wait. And maybe parents that are going to be saying, you know, my kid's starting to talk about transferring back. You know, they may hear some negative things of what's going on in school.
One of our favorite things to talk about, actually. It's a long, depending on the school, you know, we have no school on Wednesday or Thursday, so it's a long weekend. It's often the first weekend they've gone back, or at least the longest time. And the bottom line is the importance of sharing expectations. And so we don't ever want a family to feel brokenhearted, and we don't want our students to come back frustrated after the visit. And so I think what often happens is that both the family and the student start thinking about what those 4 or 5 days are going to look like. And so the parents maybe, you know, planning different holiday traditions, filling the refrigerator with their students' favorite food, thinking about what movies they may go see. Siblings are excited, you know, they think that brother or sister might come to their soccer game, or, you know, they start to think about that.
Yes.
Well, the students have thoughts too. I'll go to grandma's on Thursday, but I'm going to spend the whole weekend with my high school friends and I'm going to sleep. And so when those two parties don't discuss before the weekend how that's going to go, what happens is the parents and the siblings get really disappointed and heartbroken. It can go not so well.
How do you react to your child coming home from being away and they treating their homestead now as a hotel?
Yes.
So this is not a hotel.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Can you give some advice? Some parents that are going to might experience that situation.
Absolutely. You didn't hang the bed and breakfast sign out front, right? That's not what you're doing. So I think part of that is the expectation. You know, when you're home, we would love to see you. We are hoping that you are going to dinner at grandma's as our regular tradition, and that you're going to do something with brother, sister, whoever it is, at least during this time. Now, you talk with me about what your scheduling is, because once you start that, and I think the beautiful thing is you have maybe from Wednesday to Sunday this time before you get ready for that long holiday over December to January. So let's figure out, did what we talk about work? Or when I said dinner at grandma's, you're shoveling food in as fast as you can and heading for the door. Okay, we need to reiterate what I mean by having dinner at grandma's. So I think having some of those conversations, so that way.
These people are boring.
Right, like I gotta go, my phone, and I have things going on, and these Snapchats. So how do they do that commute back and forth with family, which might make it feel a little bit like a hotel, but they do need to come and go a little bit more to maintain that job.
To wrap it up, I'm so glad you were here and to share the first year and that the parents and what they do on campus that could help their child if they're hearing on the phone, and they could call and say, you know what, I saw you, and maybe you could help my child that maybe end up on academic probation in no time, or isn't making healthy choices. Look at how you do what.
Two things come to mind. One is and we've talked about this, but reiterating the importance of using the resources. So I tell students, think of everything as a personal invitation. So there's all these things happening on campus. You're already paying for them. So if you join a gym and you never go, you can't be angry that you didn't get fit and you didn't lose weight. You didn't go. You didn't utilize your membership to the gym. And that's how this is. There's a whole lot more involved at the university than just the classes that they're taking. And so that could be tutoring. It could be counseling. It could be meeting with a career advisor to make sure that they're on track for the right career. So the one thing I think of once they're in college is the utilization of the resources. There's probably someone on campus whose job it is to manage that particular concern.
Oh, do you have anything to add?
I think for me, it's utilizing everything that we have there beyond resources, which is excellent, is to find a way to get involved beyond just going to class. And it could be a group, it could be going and finding a study group, it could be connecting and joining the Quidditch team. But what I would tell people is, it could be something that you've never thought of before. You might have always been the theater kid. Well, maybe here's a new opportunity to try French club. You know, find something to become connected, because then when you're leaving because you're involved in something, your roommate's a little bit less bothersome to you. Or you have more friends that you've connected with besides just the people that live right next door. And they have that ability to find that connection at the university. Finding a job, volunteering, getting a group, all of those things increase your network of who you know on campus, and that means every year you're increasing those contacts that you have and you feel more connected to the institution.
I would agree with that. And I always told my children too that Grand Valley, you know, Michigan State, which my other son went to Eastern, they want you to succeed.
Yes.
They want you to be the biggest cheerleader out there. I just loved my experience.
Absolutely.
I'm successful, whatever. So there's programs out there available at the university to help you succeed. All you have to do is ask, right? And the more connected you are, the more you're going to love your experience, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely.
It's a big expense. Going to a university is a big
Yes,
expense.
it is.
So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Thank you. And thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on Breathe in the Grand Show. Goodbye and have a great day.